Howdy. Welcome back to Dion Talk. What is the price or the cost of financial freedom? This isn't going to be one of those videos where I talk about the time commitment, the discipline, the sacrifice. There are hundreds of those, and I've made a few myself. This is going to be a video where I share transparent numbers on what is the actual cost, like value that you have to reach financial freedom, to make work optional. Like in freaking dollars. Not in how much time you have to commit to it, how working a 10 to 14 hour day and then getting off and going and staring at stock charts to figure out what to invest in, or starting and growing your business and hiring people and training people and all the time commitment and the sacrifice. I mean, there's a lot of that goes on, but how much money does it actually take to make work optional? That's what I want to cover in this video. If this is your first time to my channel, my goal is to help you understand that the average person can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less and make work completely optional in 10 years or less. That's what I did. I've been retired a month now. Today's actually the anniversary of the 1 month of me turning in my notice saying I'm done. I retired at 52. And I think the average person can do it in about 10 years or less. I wasn't starting in a very good position. I was a single parent with 3 kids, making about $17 an hour, teaching people how to drive trucks after being laid off from a police department. So I didn't have a good debt to income ratio. I didn't have a big, huge savings. I didn't have equity in my house. I was actually upside down in my house. I owed more money than it was worth. I found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name that I didn't know existed until the divorce. And from that starting position, it still took only 10 years. But how much did it cost? The purpose of this video is to find out if you are willing to pay the price. I get most of us are willing to pay the time sacrifice, put in the sweat equity. And a lot of people, when it comes to my strategy that I used to buy and hold real estate, was to look for ways to invest with low or no money down. There's actually not only a lot of videos, but there's books like Brandon Turner's book from BiggerPockets on how to invest in real estate with low or no money down. And even in his book, though, it doesn't say you don't have money. And that book is talking about strategies where you can invest with low or no money of your own. That's not what I did. I've never used the Burr method. I've never taken out a home equity line of credit. I've not sold a property. I've not 1031. I've not done anything like that. To reach financial freedom, I saved the money, I invested the money, and I made work optional. So from that first starting position, here's the first price I want to see if you're willing to pay. I lived in a house with my 3 kids, and we moved into an apartment so that I could rent the house out to help my debt to income ratio. My home payment on the house was a little over $1,000. It was like $1,088 at the time. I was one of those people that had an adjustable rate mortgage, so yay me, that went up later. The apartment was $1,500 a month. So the first cost I had was I increased my cost of living to get rental income on my tax returns. And I rented the house out for basically the price of the mortgage. So I didn't even start making money. And that first year went really bad because I didn't educate myself, which is why I'm hoping you're here to educate yourself to not make the same mistakes that I did in those first few years. So I increased my cost of living. I was paying more to start the path to financial freedom. Are you willing to spend more money to work towards financial freedom? Some people will start and grow a business. There's 3 main paths. It's start and grow a business, invest in stocks, or invest in real estate. There's crypto, but it's a bit volatile for me, and I don't really consider it a path right now, as much as a strategy that you can add on to a different path. That doesn't mean people haven't done it with crypto. But if you're going to invest in a business, that means you're going to buy materials, advertise, probably hire and pay people before you make a penny. Are you willing to spend the money on that? Are you willing to pay the cost of working towards financial freedom? If you're going to invest in stocks, a lot of people will use what they call the 4% rule. And in years like this, it tends to be the 3% rule. And this is information they took from the Trinity study, where if you invest 25 times your annual expenses, you can live on 4% of that And the idea is with a 10% average growth in the stock market increases enough to cover your 4% that you're taking out to live on, and enough to pay the taxes to where the principal never actually gets smaller. And the idea is, if you want $100,000 a year to live on, with this study, you then need to invest $2.5 million. That 4% would give you the $100,000 a year that you need. And a lot of people, when they talk about stocks, they really focus on compound interest. Like, you don't have $2.5 million to put in the stock market, so you're going to invest over time, times the aspect that they're missing. But if you invest zero and you multiply it and you compound it, I'm going to use some Jane math here. Zero, carry the zero plus the zero isn't going to equal $2.5 million. You need to invest in stocks for it to compound. If you're going to invest in real estate, while there are some aspects of real estate where you can invest with no money, you can use zero down first-time home buyer programs, you can use a VA loan, which had a cost, but it doesn't have a monetary cost. You now have to maintain a property. You have to fix the roof, you have to service things, you have to have the expense of owning that house. My first purchase of an investment property, I saved for 2 years. Now remember, I wasn't in a very good position. I had a lot of bad debt. I wasn't making a lot of money. I was a single parent with 3 kids. So I worked overtime. I tried to, get pay raises at work up the corporate ladder like everyone else is doing. I had side hustles where I do expert testimony to get paid to provide information on things like transportation or the military or anything that I've worked in. Over the course of those 2 years, I was able to save a little more than $20,000. Now, here's where I want to find out if you're willing to pay the price of financial freedom. Single parent, 3 kids, not a lot of money. You have over $20,000 sitting in the bank. Do you go to Disneyland? Do you go to Disneyland twice or Disney World once? Do you get a nice new vehicle? I was actually thinking the other day, until my kids were 20, I don't think I ever owned a vehicle that was younger than they were. Are you willing to drive the old vehicle to take that little over $20,000 that you have now, and instead of buying the things that you want, moving the money from the bank into a property? There's the down payment, closing costs, money for immediate repairs. There is a cost to buying. For me, it was the first duplex. I moved from the apartment into the duplex and reduced my housing expenses from $1,500 a month down to $1,200 a month. So I was willing to pay the price of starting the path to financial freedom. Instead of buying the vehicle that I wanted, because I had 2 or 3 vehicles at that point in time, because I had to have enough so that one would run well enough to get me to work, right? I didn't take the big fancy expensive vacations. We took trips, but they weren't to places like Disney World or Disneyland. My goal was to put the money to work in a property to increase the cash flow. Are you willing to pay that price over a period of 2 years? Because after that, it was even another 2 years after that I was able to buy the next property. Now this thing starts to happen called the Income Snowball. And this happens for people who invest in stocks. Your compound interest kicks in when you have a business and you start to see the cash flow finally after the couple of years it took to get from the red to the black or the black to the red or whatever you were working on. This is not the time to get the new truck. This is not the time to take the big vacation. This is the time to continue putting the money to work. Over the next 2 years, I saved a little over $50,000. It was almost $60,000 to get the next duplex. This is cash flow from the house, more money from work, more money from side hustles, more overtime, less spending, lower my housing expense, so I was saving all of that money to buy the next duplex. The cost of financial freedom is the actual money you are going to have to invest. I see a lot of the videos that come up in my YouTube feed are the strategies like Burr or flipping to generate revenue and all of these ways to make money that aren't focusing on you need to put the money to work. Later, once you reach financial freedom and the income snowball is still a thing, yes, I went through the cycle of the average midlife crisis that everyone does. Corvette, jacked up F-250, month-long vacations all over the world. Although in the beginning, the first one was to Colombia. The next one was to Thailand. So I did 1 month vacations where I came home with more money than I left with, even though I spent pretty much as much money as I could on the trip. I scuba dove everywhere, I ate the best foods, I stayed at the best hotels I could find. My vacations were to countries where I came home with more money than what I left with. And now, work is completely optional. I've been retired a month because I was willing, someone's killing a kid, because I was willing to pay the price of financial freedom. I'm hoping that you are willing to pay that price and that you understand that there's going to be an actual dollar amount tied to you not needing to work for money. I need to get away from that kid behind me. One of us is going to get hurt, but not today. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk. And yes, this was a nice short live stream where I didn't really answer questions. If you want your questions answered live, nice truck. Very sorry about your penis. Tuesday afternoons, 4 p.m. I answer all questions. See you next Tuesday.